Lieutenant Governor Mark Taylor today called for state and federal investigations of Governor Sonny Perdue. It's another escalation in the bitter race for governor. Our veteran political reporter Paul Yates is here with more on the story. Paul?
Well, Amanda, the lieutenant governor is making clear that the governor's personal real estate dealings will remain in focus for this final week. Polls continue to show the governor with a big lead in the race.
Reported this week, a new secret land deal Sonny failed to disclose.
In campaign commercials and news conferences, Lieutenant Governor Mark Taylor blames Governor Sonny Perdue for the state's failure to purchase a wildlife preserve called Oaky Woods, which is next to land owned by the governor in Middle Georgia.
If Oaky Woods is developed, as it will be developed into 35,000 home sites, then Governor Sonny Perdue makes out like a bandit.
Now the lieutenant governor is asking for state and federal investigations of what he calls a clear conflict of interest. Key decisions on the Oaky Woods property were made here at the state office building by Sonny Perdue, a veteran state official who at the time ran the Georgia Department of Natural Resources. What did the governor say to you about this property?
The governor, every time he and I would talk about it, expressed to me a solid interest in trying to find a way to protect this property.
Mr. Barrett is now part of the governor's executive office. He says the state had only a brief time to act in the midst of an economic recession.
We were treated just like all other commercial buyers who were interested in buying the property, and we just simply ran out of time. And Governor and I both were just heartbroken that this thing didn't work out.
The governor was in South Georgia, continuing a 40-city tour of the state. His campaign spokesman called the Taylor accusations, quote, wild and desperate, and added, quote, this is exactly why nobody believes Mark Taylor anymore and why he is so far down in the polls. If the state had spent millions of dollars during a time of financial trouble to buy a nature preserve next door to Governor Perdue's property, wouldn't there have been complaints about that?
I really don't think so, Paul. It was the #1 piece of property identified by the Department of Natural Resources for protection. I don't believe there would have been any criticism. I think there would have been celebration.
Now, meanwhile, the state Republican Party filed a new ethics complaint against Lieutenant Governor Taylor, saying his campaign had not reimbursed the candidate's father for use of an airplane. The lieutenant governor's campaign disputed that, calling the Republican complaint an attempt to distract voters.
All right. We heard the Perdue campaign mention that Mark Taylor is far behind in the polls. What we'll be watching on election night is to see whether Governor Perdue can avoid a runoff. What are we looking at here, do you think?
Well, there's a new poll out today from Strategic Vision that puts the governor at 52%, the lieutenant governor at 36%. And polling otherwise shows the governor at around 48%, 50%. So it looks like he is right around the threshold of having what it takes to avoid a runoff if the numbers continue in this fashion.
All right, we'll certainly see what happens when voters go to the polls next Tuesday. Thanks, Paul. You can depend on Fox 5 for complete election coverage next Tuesday.